Feeling all right. It's the final hour of OverDrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. Filling in for Hayes Noodles and the O-Dog. My name is Brendan Dunlop. Happy to be alongside Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star, former Toronto Maple Leaf Peter Holland. We had a good conversation before we got to break there to begin this hour about the locker room dynamic and how different it seems to be in the Leafs locker room now than when you were in that locker room for 3 seasons. And in general, it seems like, to me, an outsider who spends a lot less time in locker rooms than you do, Dave, it does seem like a generational thing. But for a team like the Leafs, who are so close to getting to the next level and so determined to get to the next level, I don't think it's something we talk about enough, that the chemistry in the room and that dynamic is maybe contributing to how things play out in the grind of a postseason.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because every team has a different heartbeat. Mm-hmm. And so you can't necessarily apply one blanket solution to every team in the league and say, this is how we're going to come together and this is how we're going to be successful, whether that's meals on the road or, whatever it may be. But, I think it's certainly interesting to me when I see a hometown kid like Ryan O'Reilly, as an example, who he gets a taste of it here. And supposedly money wasn't an issue for him to re-sign. And Toronto's in win now mode. So for a guy like that who could have come home and re-signed and potentially made another run for a Stanley Cup, to then sign with Nashville, who's sort of shaking things up a little bit. To me, I wonder what's going on behind those doors, because I've been on both sides now, right? Like I've been in that dressing room. I've done some media stuff now, so I see the two different faces, and you don't always know on the media side what's going on behind those doors, but. The Ryan O'Reilly one was certainly interesting for me, and I'm not saying that it did in fact have anything to do with the dressing room, but I don't know. It just sort of strikes me as odd that a guy who loves winning, like Ryan O'Reilly does, and if money wasn't an issue, as supposedly it wasn't, why didn't he stick around? And I think the game has certainly shifted a little bit. Some of the closest guys I was with happened to be in the American League, just because everybody was in a similar stage of life. Everyone was typically younger. There was maybe a couple older guys, but the NHL is a different animal because the age difference is much different. You have your young guys, you have your 30-year-olds, you have some 38-year-olds, and so you have guys who are still single, you have guys who have girlfriends, you have guys with fiancés, you have guys that are married and potentially have 3 or 4 kids. Mm-hmm. So it can be a little bit, I don't want to use the word trickier, but different, trying to bring that group of characters together and to get them all together, which is tough, right? Because especially when you go on the road and, to go have a team meal, it's like, I'm a dad now. I got a 2-year-old at home and 1 on the way. And when I get a night off, all I want to do is go to bed. Yeah. So there's a little bit of that too. But, at the same time, it's your job to develop that chemistry and to come together and to put a team effort forward every night. And I just, to me, that's been lacking a little bit, especially with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And even in my time there, it felt a little bit cliquey. It was like, there was this dinner group and there was that dinner group. And Dion did an amazing job of trying to bring everyone together. And we did have team dinners, but, looking back on it, and of course, hindsight's always 20/20, that's what it was. It wasn't really a cohesive group. Now, you can also argue it was certainly a weird time in the Toronto Maple Leaf history where we weren't performing well, and so the one year I think we had like 35 guys wear a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey. Like, it was crazy how many guys were up and down. But it's certainly something that when you're on a winning team, everyone just wants to hang out all the time.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about the generation gap in hockey, because we've been hearing from the Raptors side about the generation gap in that locker room this year, right? With the little divide between 29-year-old Fred VanVleet and 29-year-old Pascal Siakam and 21-year-old Scotty Barnes, right? And Fred VanVleet's kind of expanded on that. He was talking to some ex-NFLers on a podcast the other day, talking about how the chemistry just didn't click. And guess what? When the off-court chemistry and the relationships didn't click, we watched what happened on court, and it was ugly, right? We had the president of the team himself said he didn't enjoy watching the team play. Right, and I think a lot of us felt the same way. If you were subjected to watching those guys play selfish basketball and not particularly good basketball all year, but Fred VanVleet talked about fellas that he believes it's like almost like his theory was sort of it's like a generational divide on millennials to Gen Z,
Yeah.
or Gen Z, I guess they call it in the States, because he was saying like millennials, and he was more talking about himself. He's had most of his childhood was without social media.
Right.
And then in high school, he kind of got into social media. But these younger guys like Scotty Barnes, they've kind of grown up in the social media era exclusively.
Well, look at Grady Dick. He's a TikTok star.
Yeah, and he pointed to that as the thing. And I'm not sure it's that. I'm sure it's more, the social scientists will tell you it's way more complicated than that, but it's an interesting observation.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Having, been, I'm a millennial myself, that like I remember when the internet became a thing. I remember a time before where there was no internet. These kids have only ever had Instagram and Facebook.
Right.
And you kind of live life to show off on the gram, or that's one way in which you do.
Right.
And now with the elevated profile in which they have, now with the brands as being as much of a focus for some guys, or at least a competing focus as much as their actual game is, it does make their lives very different for someone like Fred VanVleet. It's only a handful of years. I like to think I have, a lot in common with someone that's maybe 8 years older than me. Mm-hmm. But I know from working in this business now, I don't have as much in common with someone 8 years younger than me.
Yes.
As I felt like, probably wasn't
Well,
the case a few years ago.
it's instant gratification, right? Like with everything you do, like you make a post on Instagram, it's like, how many likes am I going to get? Instant gratification. I want this deck of cards. Well, Amazon Prime delivers it next day. It's just like anything you want, you have it. And I mean, I was sort of in that flux point where I remember a little bit of pre-internet era, but I was also too young that even if the internet was around, I wasn't going to be using it like that. But to your point, and to your point as well, Dave, like just the generational gap in terms of guys who are coming up now who know nothing but this era, it's certainly like an interesting flux point, I think.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I mean, there's like Golden State, is an interesting case in point, because they were talking about this great youth movement they had, and they had the championship, multiple championship core with Steph and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson, and they had all those young guys, but they just moved off two of the young guys, trading, Jordan Poole and Winston, right? So, and they kept around Kuminga, and they kept around Moses Moody, but Draymond Green talked about, very similar to what Fred VanVleet talked about, how it's almost like he said that Kuminga, who's I think 20, and Draymond's in his early 30s now, he said, Kuminga looks at him like he looks at a 55-year-old, and in a kind of a mocking way, I think. The young guy looking at the old guy saying, man, you're old, And Draymond is still a very effective player. And of course, but the interesting thing is, Golden State just gave Draymond a 4-year extension. They just traded for a 38-year-old Chris Paul. I think they're saying, in the generational divide, we'll probably go with the older guys right now, right? Because maybe we can't mix too many of the younger guys with the older guys, because it just hasn't worked.
Yeah. It's an interesting
thought, yeah.
An interesting dynamic, and especially in a sport like basketball where you have less guys on the team.
Right.
You're going to kind of need to have a balance. There will always be a divide. You're always going to have a mix of guys, but maybe it can't be 50-50 or 60-40. Maybe it has to be 90-10. In order for it to click, right?
So the old guys outnumber the young guys and tell them to shut the heck up.
I mean, it could be that. It could be that, Peter. I'm sure you played on some teams where you thought, man, it'd be different if there was a bunch of us single 20-year-old guys. If we just moved out a couple of these old defensemen, and all of a sudden.
But it's because the Leafs have been a team ruled by the young guys for quite some time now, right?
Yeah, well, that's been
the money talks.
Well, for sure it does, and you have a lot of responsibility when you are making that type of money. So you have a lot of say and sway in the dressing room. So it's certainly an interesting dynamic to watch and to monitor. And you look at a team like Vegas, who they have top end guys. They still have a guy making $10.5 million with was it Stone or Stone, but it just seems like there's a lot more similar contracts, and there isn't such a drastic difference throughout their lineup, which is interesting.
Well, because there's a big dynamic. I remember Dean Lombardi, who was the GM of those two Kings teams that won Stanley Cups a decade ago or so. He talked about there's chemistry in terms of relationships and team chemistry. There's also economic chemistry.
Yeah. That's right.
Because if you got a guy making $10 million and then you got a bunch of other guys making $800,000, their wives don't really like hanging out with each other, because one's wearing Gucci, the other one's wearing Super Keds.
I'm not gonna name the two guys, but we were at the mall in Minnesota on a off day.
Mall of America.
And there was a Louis Vuitton store. And these two guys, this is when I was with the Leafs, and these two guys played heads or tails for who was going to buy the other guy this $5,000 Louis Vuitton bag.
Wow.
And I'm like, I was having a good time hanging out with them, but I'm like, this is not a game for me. Like, and the guy who lost bought the bag and gave it to the other guy. So to your point, like socioeconomic status makes a difference in the locker room for sure, right? Like you got the older guys driving their nice cars, and you got the younger guys still showing up in their mom's hand-me-down, which there's nothing wrong with. It's just
smart economic sense.
Yeah,
right?
hey, you stay. What's Kevin Hart's line? Stay in your financial lane.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you see your tax bill.
Yeah, that's right.
But, I think for fans who see that all of these guys are millionaires, that they might not see the difference between $1 million and $10 million. Someone on the outside, when you are on the inside, like there is a difference. Between 10 and 12, not so much, but between 1 and 10, it's huge. Or as we see in soccer, someone like Lorenzo Insigne, who last year was on $16 million, is playing with guys that are making $80,000.
Yeah, the MLS probably has the biggest disparity of any league, right? Like in a lot of ways.
Because of the David Beckham designated player rule.
Right.
It is time for a game, my friend, or time for a segment that is quite popular here, made popular by the Grappler. Confirm or Deny, brought to you by Don Valley North Lexus, excuse me. Right now, lease the 2023 IS300 premium package from just $288 bi-weekly for 24 months. Visit DonValleyNorthLexus.com for details. The Grappler, confirm or deny. Now is the time, my friend. I got so excited I tried to do this in the last hour, but
it's all good. But now it wouldn't be an edition of Confirm or Deny without playing our intro for Confirm or Deny. So, JP?
I can neither confirm or deny that this is in fact a segment.
Austin trades Andrew Raycroft to Toronto in exchange for the rights to Tuukka Rask.
It's been my honor and a privilege to serve as the general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs Hockey Club.
It's time for Confirm or Deny.
Do you regret giving all those gentlemen the no trades or no movement clauses?
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that.
I can't confirm or deny.
One of my favorite intros. So, Dave, you've obviously played Confirm or Deny on this show several times. Brendan, Peter, I believe this will be your first time doing it.
My first time.
Okay, so it's relatively straightforward. I think the name of the segment is pretty self-explanatory. I'll throw out a hypothetical. You guys decide whether you confirm it or you deny it. Everyone on the same page here?
Got it, buddy.
Let's do it.
Okay, number one, confirm or deny. MLB All-Star Week is the best All-Star event of the four major sports.
Oh, that's hard because we talked about how great the home run derby is, but I really think MLS has got it right with the All-Stars going up against these European teams.
Soccer guy goes soccer.
So,
what a shock.
Shocker.
I know.
I did say
would be
four
predictable.
major sports.
Oh. Yeah, I would go with baseball.
For the purposes of this segment, we'll say 5.
Okay, fine, my friend. I think that the MLS, puts a good effort in there, but Major League Baseball, because of the home run derby, the 2-night festival that it is, I give it to Major League Baseball.
I'm going to confirm it as well. I think that the home run derby just takes the cake. That's the one that I think everyone tunes in for.
Sure.
Just watching these guys hit sluggers. So I'm going to confirm MLB is the best.
I'll deny it. I'll deny it because I got a bone.
To be different.
I got a bone to pick with not the home run derby, which is the best of the gimmicky contests. I think it's better than the slam dunk contest. It's better than any of the NHL fastest skater stuff. I mean, the NHL fastest skater had me for a while. Hardest slap shot when Chara was ruling that was kind of cool. But it's the one thing about like the 450-foot dinger is still an amazing thing to watch. And I think Vladdy put on a show last night that was great. But the All-Star game is it's losing steam. And I mean, I think one of the reasons tonight, you got one of the most exciting young players that we've seen in a long time in Ellie De La Cruz with the Cincinnati Reds, who, as we were talking about off air, stole second, third, and home in one inning the other day. And he's not in the game. It's like, and I understand why he didn't want to go to the home run derby, and commissioner had the right to give him a commissioner's pick into the game and didn't do it, but they're just a little tone deaf on what people want to see. We want to see that guy. I'll tell you that right now. Most people, he's probably the story of baseball outside of Shohei Ohtani this year. So I don't think baseball gets it right enough. So if I had to go with the full weekend, I'd go with the NBA. The NBA All-Star Weekend has a lot going on, and the game's usually okay, even though it's a no defensive thing. They actually play pretty hard down the stretch. So I'd still have to give it to the NBA.
Can't deny that.
No.
Well, I'm surprised. No love for the Pro Bowl, eh? None.
I've never been to
You mean
Hawaii.
the dodgeball bowl or whatever the
man.
heck they're playing these days?
And honestly, it just gets worse and worse every year. Like who's even? I remember for a while I would at least like try and watch the beginning, and then I would just eventually tune it out. But now it's like the second it's on, it's like, all right, I'm out. Anyways, moving on. Confirm or deny. Both Auston Matthews and William Nylander have new contracts with the Leafs before the start of training camp.
I'm going to deny this. And I think there's a chance that one of them has a contract. And if I'm going to pick one, it's going to be Auston Matthews because I believe he's the priority. But I'm denying it because the question's for both. I don't think William Nylander comes to training camp with an extension. I believe he starts the year. And I think that there's no urgency to do it yet. And I'm not sure that there will be urgency to get it done before training camp. And also, I just think that we've seen Willie hold out in the past. I think he's stubborn for what he wants. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve it and doesn't have the right to do so, but I just think that nothing's going to get done before training camp. So I'm a deny on this one.
I'm with you on it, Peter. I'm with you on the deny. We heard Bruce Boudreau talk about how, and I'm with you. Matthews will sign, I think, but Bruce Boudreau pointed to a factor that doesn't get mentioned enough. It's not William Nylander. It's not necessarily Louis Gross, who is William Nylander's agent and was also the agent for Johnny Gaudreau, who, was negotiating with Brad Treliving and allowed his client to go into a season without a contract and ended up leaving Calgary and the Flames for nothing in free agency, which is the nightmare scenario for the Leafs in this case. But it's also Michael Nylander, as Bruce Boudreau pointed out, who was always a difficult guy to sign. Bruce mentioned when he was playing in Washington, kind of a family thing there, where they're hardballers when it comes to contracts. And I think the father's handed it down to the son. The son has been very staunch in his ability to, keep a poker face and hold all his cards close to his chest and let it play out. So I don't see a rush there, and I just don't see how they're going to get to the right number between now and the start of training camp.
I'm with you. And I also got to deny, too. I think they get one of the deals done. Matthews seems to be the favorite in that camp, but I'll deny it because it gives us a lot more to talk about on TSN.
Yeah, 100%. And see, one thing I actually could see happening is I could see Matthews having an extension and Nylander dealt before the start of training camp.
It might have to come to that.
Yeah, probably a lot more likely than
Hot
both
take
of them
from the
having
grappler.
Yeah, once in a while I'll jump in here with something. All right, moving on. Pre-confirm or deny. Vlad Guerrero Jr. currently has 13 home runs on the season, sitting at the unofficial halfway point of the MLB regular season. Blue Jays have played 91 games. I believe he's appeared in 88 of them. Confirm or deny, Vlad hits more home runs the rest of the season than he did prior to the All-Star break, which there are 71 games remaining on the season.
I got to confirm this. I will go with the theory that Steve Phillips kind of threw around here yesterday on OverDrive, that the home run derby will be the key in the ignition that revs up Vladdy Guerrero's season. What did Steve say yesterday, Brendan? That when you sort of hit those repeated home runs, you start hunting the bottom of the baseball. He hasn't been sort of getting that launch angle going. He's only got the 13 home runs. This is a guy who hit 48 home runs 2 seasons ago. So you have to believe there's more there. And maybe this moment in the sun in Seattle last night is the thing that gets him going.
I'm also going to confirm. I think that this is a confidence builder and a momentum builder. And he's hit one home run in the Rogers Park. Or it's like one or two.
It took him a long time to get one. He's got more than that now, but
he did it leading up.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, I think he's going to get hot now. I think that this is really good for him to have won this. He went in wanting to win it. He did it. So I think it's good for his confidence. For a guy who had 48 home runs 2 seasons ago, I think now he's just going to be feeling good about it. So I'm going to confirm this.
I got to confirm that, too. I mean, 13 from a guy that is capable of hitting 30 plus, I think, in any season that he plays 100 games or less than that. I think this is a guy that I wouldn't want to bet against. I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of that. So I got to confirm too.
No, and the 13 is such a small number too, and I'm pretty sure it's Bo Bichette who leads the Jays with 15 home runs. And going into this year, something John Schneider's talking about, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro was playing more, big boy, smart baseball, less home runs, focusing more on getting on base. So this is obviously a part of the game plan for them to hit less home runs. But yeah, 13, another 13 or 14 over a 71 game span. I got to think that's almost a lock for Vlad. So I'm confirming it as well, in case anyone was asking.
Yeah.
Confirm or deny a Canadian NHL team other than the Leafs and Oilers will reach the playoffs this coming season?
I'll confirm that.
Okay, who you got?
I'll confirm that. Man, I think the Flames are going to get it right. I think that the Flames, were knocking on the door for parts of last season. I do think that Kadri and Huberdeau didn't settle in kind of the way that they had hoped for. But I think that optimistic, coming into this new season with an off season of some change, that you're going to have a bump. You're going to have a new coach bump, new management bump. I think they'll have that in Calgary.
I'm going to deny just based off of the contracts that exist today, because I think that there's a lot of, I don't want to use the expression, but a lot of tire fires around the Canadian markets right now.
It's a good expression.
Yeah.
Thanks for great talk radio.
There's a lot of issues, I think, that are in the Canadian market right now. And I know you got a sleeper here with Calgary that you just picked, but there's a lot of guys that want out of there.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of repair work to do. And I just think that, Ottawa's another one where there's a lot of change. DeBrincat just wanted out. He got out. So I think that there's a lot of turnover going on in the Canadian market. So I'm going to deny that.
I'll confirm it. I'm with you on Calgary. I think that, in terms of blame the coach scenarios, blaming Darryl Sutter for the underperformance of a lot of those guys, certainly Huberdeau would fall into that category.
Right.
It's plausible. It's plausible. I don't think it's always a cop out in some ways, but I also think there's some real reasons why guys don't perform for certain coaches, and I think Darryl pushed that boundary of what's reasonable in today's pro sports environment.
Yeah, but what's interesting though is Darryl is gone, and guys were still saying I want out. So I think everyone from the outside was like, oh, Darryl must have been the issue, but now it's like, well, guys are still saying that. Why?
Yeah. Well, look, they're not getting out if they're under contract.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
they're gonna have to play, and they're gonna have to. And I think most guys will play to maximize their value.
Of course,
trade chips.
And for the record, there's a lot of good pieces in those dressing rooms.
I think there is.
But just in terms of being a playoff contention team, I don't know that the other Canadian teams.
Yeah, I think Montreal's still a ways away. Vancouver's miles away.
Yeah,
and I think Ottawa, they're in one of those situations where it's got to happen now because you got a new owner in town. If it doesn't happen fast, you got to think everybody's getting fired, or something close.
and the Jets are just too far off. You think?
Well, they also have their issues, right?
A lot of changes.
They'd be the team that you wouldn't want to bet against too. I mean, there's reasons to believe that.
But again, lots of great pieces.
Yeah,
still, right?
Plenty. Real goaltending, lots of other things that make you go, they can be there. But you're right. Like the dysfunction there has been a problem, and until you see it corrected, it's hard to believe in it.
Right.
Okay, one final confirm or deny. Brendan, I'm expecting big things from you on this one.
Oh, buddy, I feel like we're going to the beautiful game here.
Yes, not one of the major four. Okay, I'll stop with that.
Okay.
Confirm or deny, Leo Messi will have a bigger impact on MLS than David Beckham did.
Oh, such a good question. I will confirm this, and the easy answer is the day and age that we live in, where Messi has joined in this social media age in which matches are streamed. They've just done this $1 billion deal, $2 billion deal with Apple. This is going to take the American League, Major League Soccer, to a global stratosphere. And you will have the rest of the world watching and paying attention. And you had a bit of that when Beckham joined, but at a different time, where it wasn't accessible the same way, where it wasn't on TV in the middle of the night. Now you can watch it on demand. Now you can watch it anytime. Now you could just watch the highlights and clips on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter and Threads. And that wasn't the case with Beckham. And Messi is a bigger star. Beckham is one of the most marketable athletes ever. But Messi is one of the best players of all time and one of the most marketable athletes ever. And MLS has got it right with marketing him. So, yes, I will confirm that.
I'm also going to confirm, and you took a lot of the words out of my mouth.
I'm sorry,
as well.
Peter, I got it.
Well, I think David Beckham was sort of this tipping point, right? That sort of put the soccer league on the map here.
Sure.
And now bringing over Messi, like Messi is Messi. Like he's just the guy. He's the GOAT that everybody talks about. So in terms of just impact, which is what the confirm or deny is, I believe that Messi's going to have a bigger impact, and therefore I'm going to confirm that this is it.
I got to confirm it. And I like where you're going with the whole idea that this could really elevate Major League Soccer. It's not going to be the premiership anytime soon in terms of the global leagues. But Grappler, I know what you're saying about they're not one of the four majors, but You start looking at, I remember Richard Petty, former CEO of Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment, telling me the story of how he went to buy a soccer team in New York one morning about 20 years ago. And he stopped for breakfast with Gary Bettman. And Gary Bettman laughed at him when he told him his afternoon plans. Gary Bettman said, they should give you those teams for free. Why are you spending any money on those teams? Petty bought TFC for $10 million. $10 million, right? Most recently, it's been valued, I think, at about $700 million.
Yeah,
right. Like 18 years later.
That was the expansion fee in 2006. Was just $10 million, and
so,
San Diego just paid.
So I'm saying, if
600.
you kind of extrapolate, there'll be a day when those franchises can be worth more than NHL franchises. And
well, especially if they continue bringing in talent.
Yeah,
like Messi. They just continue to turn that over.
Right.
And what will that do for the league and the values of the team?
So in terms of vision, I think the guys that run that league, they got a pretty good vision of how to take it to the next level. And Apple and Messi are they're fairly big names in the world. I like attaching myself to those.
In Miami as well. It's not like they're putting Messi in Salt Lake for Real.
So that's what Ohtani's going to do with all his money. He's going to buy one of those teams.
He could.
He might have that's his budget.
That's his budget.
$600 million, which is what we're talking about Ohtani's contract being, is exactly the last expansion fee for San Diego, the 30th team.
Crazy.
$600 million. I'm pretty sure that was the total.
Yeah, well,
pretty good return
I saw
for
valuation,
Mr. Petty.
Richard likes to tell that story funny enough. It makes him look fairly good as a businessman.
It's a pretty good story.
Jordan had a pretty good one there with the Hornets, too.
Yeah.
It seems to be like the secret weapon. Just own a sports
Even
franchise.
if you're a terrible owner.
Well, that's just it.
Like Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, JP just corrected me that it was $500 million for San Diego.
Okay.
Well,
TFC's been valued.
Vegas.
TFC's been valued in the $700 million range.
But an expansion fee, I'm saying.
So Ohtani will actually have extra money after he buys the team.
Yeah, I guess he'd actually have a little extra money.
He's a little more.
Yeah, you should get in business with him. You know? That's it.
Oh, I'm really good at spending other people's money.
Diversify, different sports. There we go. I like that. I'm pretty good at spending other people's money as well. That was Confirm or Deny, brought to you by Don Valley North Lexus. Right now, lease the 2024 NX250 signature package from just $298 bi-weekly for 24 months. Visit DonValleyNorthLexus.com for details. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come on OverDrive on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Happy that they've brought me in this week. My name is Brendan Dunlop, alongside Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star and former Toronto Maple Leaf Peter Holland. We had some really good locker room conversation. This has been nice. I had great conversations alone with Dave yesterday. We talked a lot of soccer, as we just got to in the last segment. But with you in here, it's been a nice dynamic.
We're balancing it out.
I thought it'd be a good idea to get someone that you've played with before.
Yeah.
Because the conversations always seem to be electric. And on a day like this, where we've got the Major League Baseball All-Star Game tonight and not much else, perfect time for story time. So happy to bring on former Toronto Maple Leaf and Vegas Golden Knights center Byron Froese. Byron, what's up, man?
Hey, not too much. How about you guys?
We're having a good time. Thanks for coming on the show to talk with your old buddy. Did he have to sweeten the deal, or how did he hook you today?
I mean, we've been begging to get together with him for a while, but it just hasn't worked out.
There you go.
Oh, nice that we get together on the radio, I guess, partner?
That's the space you're in now, man. Media man. There we go. Get him on the show.
Well, I guess to kick things off, buddy, you were a black ace with the Golden Knights. You had a cup of coffee with them this season. These guys just seem to perform every year. They haven't been in the league that long, but every year they're going deep in the playoffs. They finally get it done with the Stanley Cup. You've been there. You've seen it firsthand. I know at Black Ace, you're a little bit on the outside, but you're still on the inside. So what is it, man? Like, can you put your finger on it? What are they doing that maybe other teams in the league aren't doing to just have that success?
I mean, there's so many different things that you could point to, I would say. I mean, obviously they've been a team that hasn't ever been shy. They've never been gun shy on anything, right? In their 6 years, they've been 7 years, 6 years they've been around. So they're not afraid to make moves, and they're not afraid to make them whenever they need to. So that's one part. I mean, it's like acquiring a guy like Mark Stone. That's a pivotal guy right there to change your locker room, to change your organization. So, acquiring guys like that is huge. I mean, maybe the most glaring too is, it's a great city. It's a place that everyone wants to play. So, Yeah, maybe they got
we'll get into that a little bit more.
Maybe a bit of an upper hand that way. But on top of that, too, I mean, they brought in good coaches. I mean, they've gone through some really good coaches so far already. And then, you got Bruce in there. He did a great job with them this year. And obviously, another big thing is, they did an unbelievable drafting. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one who said it when they were drafting guys. I'm like, we'll see how this goes. But, that first year they had that run, they got the city hooked, just absolutely hooked. Like when you go down there, every license plate is Vegas Golden Knights. It's crazy. So that helps. The atmosphere there helps. But those core guys that they've had since day one, they really take control of that locker room. And you throw in a veteran guy like Mark Stone, it was fun to watch.
Well, I'm happy you brought up the core guys because a little bit earlier on the show, we were having a discussion about the Leafs locker room. And I may have said that in my time there, and we crossed paths in Toronto as well, I just felt like that locker room was a little bit disjointed. It was a little bit cliquey, and there was this dinner group, and there was that dinner group. And is that, like, I assume that's not the case. But give us a sense, like, when a guy like Mark Stone comes into the dressing room and just like, what's the chemistry like in the Golden Knights room and how they come together, whether it's on the road or at home and team get-togethers and, what's like the feeling in the room in terms of the chemistry?
Yeah, it was really good, really welcoming. Everyone, they seem like they get along really well. I mean, obviously they've had a lot of guys that have been together for a lot of it. So that helps, right? When you can keep certain guys together. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to the rookie party this year and have some fun, and you kind of get to see a lot of guys that way, to see how tight and close knit they are. But yeah, definitely a leader in Mark Stone. It makes a big difference. He's really welcoming. Well, everyone was, but that's the one part I didn't get to see is I didn't get to play with him, right? So because he was out when I was up, so I just kind of saw it a little bit more at a distance when I was up. And when I was black acing, but just even while he was out, he was still around, right? And that presence is still there. So I think that goes a long way. But then obviously their supporting cast, they really take pride in being a Golden Knight.
So Byron, obviously you've had a glimpse of the top of the mountain with the Golden Knights. You played with the Tampa Bay Lightning team briefly. That was obviously a Cup contender and eventual winner. But you made your rookie debut in Toronto on a team that did something everybody wanted them to do, win the draft lottery and get Auston Matthews. And I was curious, like, when you look back at that year, you're playing for Mike Babcock, you guys finished dead last in the league, and people basically wanted you to finish dead last in the league. As a player, you're trying to achieve your dream here of staying in the NHL. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was still a dream come true. I mean, a year and 3 months before that, I was debating quitting hockey. So
right.
To be a Toronto Maple Leaf and to make my debut for that team, that story of a franchise, it was unbelievable. I mean, albeit I wouldn't want it to be in that situation if I could rewrite it, but I also wouldn't pass that situation up to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. So it was definitely different, but also when you're young and maybe not as young as most guys nowadays, but when you're young and you're making your NHL debut, it's just, you don't even really think about that, right? Like it's not like guys are coming in the room like, hey, let's lose the game today. Like everyone wants to win. We're competitors. So, but yeah, looking back on it now, I wish I could have traded it for a Cup contending team. That's for sure.
I think we both would have, buddy, and probably the entire fan base would have been okay with that too.
Would have loved it.
But I gotta ask because I'm looking at your hockey DB. And we have similar hockey DBs, which is just a mess. We played for far too many teams, but you bring up Mark Stone as a great leader, and you're somebody who has carved out a leadership role for yourself as well. And you're a guy that easily slots into a bottom six role when there's an NHL team in need, but you're also a guy who's done an amazing job of being a mentor and a leader to up and coming talent for teams in the organization. And I'm just curious, has your perspective on the game changed at all now that you're a little bit older? You're a father, maybe you're not as worried about being on that 20-goal pace, which you usually are in the American League, or, having a point a game. Like, how has your mindset shifted now that you've aged a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you still want to produce. You want to contribute because that's ultimately that's a huge when you're going for contract negotiations. But no, the mindset obviously shifts, as it does with everybody that, you gain knowledge, gain experience. And in this business, as you know, Pete, it's, you become a dinosaur pretty quick. So you got to find ways to be able to contribute and find ways to be able to be of use so that you're kept around and wanted. So it's definitely, that's a big part of my game that I take very seriously, just trying to develop these guys and be a leader. And that doesn't come with a lot of challenges, right? I had some years you have a lot of resets when you have problems and when you have a team that doesn't perform as good like this year in Henderson. But, it's still something that I take a lot of pride in and definitely am learning every day. That's the biggest thing. If you want to be a leader, you got to learn from these young guys because they're bringing in different ideas, bringing in different things. So you got to be able to change a little bit, which, as everybody knows, when you get older, you don't like change as much.
Yeah. I
think one thing that surprises Canadians until they go to Vegas and see how much that city really loves hockey. It is pretty incredible that, for all the markets the NHL has gone to where they've built fan bases in Carolina, there is a fan base even that exists in Arizona. But in Vegas, it's like the whole city just loves it. Do you feel that? Yeah. Does that extend out in Henderson? And does it surprise you when you showed out there to see what that's like? That, every single person on any day of the week is walking around wearing Golden Knights gear and their dog is wearing a Golden Knights cooling jacket?
It's crazy. I mean, it's not quite on the same scale as Toronto, obviously, but it's like right up there too. It's everybody, like you said, everybody is wearing it, sporting it. Everyone's talking about it, especially with how much success they've had in the short 6 years they've been there, right? Which I think is a big testament to it, right? That first year they go deep and it just gets everybody hooked. But no, like that city was, they were dying for a sports team, and obviously the Golden Knights were lucky enough to be the first ones to get there, and they stole that fan base. I mean, I know the Raiders have some support, but I definitely see more Golden Knights stuff than I see Raiders stuff every day of the week.
And people are still traveling in for the Raiders. It's different once a week. But we were talking before about Vegas, and one of the last things I did in Vegas, and I regret, I went and saw Wayne Newton. Have you seen Mr. Vegas? Is that a team outing that anyone has proposed or done? And would you be up for it if someone did propose it?
Oh, I'd definitely be up to go see it. I haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of other shows on the Strip and done a lot of other things on the Strip as well. But no, I haven't got to that one yet. Maybe that's going to be a next year thing.
Care to define what other things you've done on the Strip?
I mean, my favorite show is by far, and this is it's definitely rated R. You got to be of age to go see it, but Absinthe is unbelievable.
We go.
It hits all the boxes. It's just. I've seen it twice now, and it was probably just as good, if not better, the second time. So it's one show. It's a must.
Like, that's the most competitive city in the world for, like, your entertainment eye.
For sure.
And there's still space for more sports teams out there.
It's incredible.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to baseball coming there. I think it's gonna be great. I mean, it can't be worse than Oakland, so it's gonna be better.
Yeah, baseball though under a roof though. Because those, what is it out there today? Like 50? Like the weather at this time of year is insane.
Byron's back in Calgary. He escaped.
Oh, there you go.
I am back in Calgary, but I honestly am missing that weather. I was golfing, I went, I think twice. I went 36 holes in 38-degree weather, and it didn't faze me at all. So I love that heat.
Does Teal know? This doesn't sound like a guy talking with two kids here, partner.
Yeah. Yeah, it was one of those times when the kids and the family were gone, so I took full advantage.
Hey, Byron, I was interested. We're talking about, you guys got there first. The Golden Knights got to Vegas first as a pro sports franchise. Football follows. Baseball's coming. The NBA is talking about expansion, and Seattle and Vegas are the two teams the two cities that keep coming up. I'm wondering, like, as the competition, you talk about the competition for the entertainment dollar, but as the competition for the sports dollar continues to encroach, I mean, how much do you think being first is going to sort of hold the Golden Knights steady in terms of their fan base?
I mean, just from like what I see personally, I think it can't be knocked off. But and just the success. I mean, Bill Foley is an owner; he's so invested in it, and it's his baby. Like, he loves it. I know he's got way bigger investments out there, I'm sure. He's got a soccer team now. He's got all these different things, but he loves it. He's around the rink more than more than any other owner I've ever seen. I mean, he'll come after a game and give you knocks, and just he wants to be one of the guys. So, that helps. But they've invested so much into it, and the team's been so successful that I can't see unless they have a bunch of down years, that I can't see another team being bigger than that. I mean, we know that hockey's maybe not the number one sport in the States, so that's why I could see if Oakland gets good, then the Raiders get good, then I could see maybe that competing. But I just, everyone's hooked on hockey now.
Well, I guess a Stanley Cup will do that. So
exactly.
that might cement.
And an owner that calls his own shots might do that as well.
Yeah. Well, By, thanks for joining the show, buddy. I really appreciate it, and we're actually going to have to connect off the air at some point soon.
Exactly.
So really appreciate you joining us today, man.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys.
Enjoy the off season and your time on the links, all you guys. That's just like a golf club. That's what this has become. This time of year.
Unfortunately, when I was with Toronto, my golf game got way too good.
Got too good.
Just no postseason action.
Yeah, I was going to say that's.
The Leafs are telling the jokes on themselves now. The golf jokes coming from the former Leafs' mouths themselves. We don't even have to bother anymore.
Nope.
That's the great transition, man. That's the great transition.
Hey, if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh at?
Yeah, no,
exactly.
Good point. Well, we'll keep the laughs going. How about that? OverDrive continues on TSN2, TSN 1050, and the iHeartRadio app. All right. Welcome back to OverDrive. My name is Brendan Dunlop, alongside Dave Feschuk and Peter Holland.
I thought you were about to break out into a Matthew McConaughey there. All right.
It seemed like it. It was just the song there. We had your boy Byron Froese on, who was based in Calgary, and that had a very Stampede vibe to it, that intro song that was in my ear.
Fair enough.
So that was my. You a big country music guy?
I love country. Easy listening. Throw it on.
Were you always into it though?
No, I got into it because of junior hockey. I hated it up until then, and then all the veteran guys in the locker room who controlled the music, all they would play was country.
Oh wow!
So that got me into it.
And we're talking a few years ago. This is not the recent fad, because it does seem like
this was like 2008.
You're playing in junior.
Yeah.
But I do feel. But you grew up in Caledon.
I did,
which is probably country music friendlier than much of Metro Toronto.
Yeah, fair.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Golf friendly. Great golf courses in Caledon.
Great golf courses. We can get back into the golf talk.
Yeah, no, I think we should steer away from the golf. There's got to be some pro soccer people that are like, oh, you switched it, now it's all golf. And they go,
no, we hit the hockey hard today.
It doesn't seem like that we did for July, and we hit it well too. I enjoyed talking with Bruce Boudreau, and he'll be one to watch. And when there's a new coaching vacancy, wherever that be in the NHL, he'll definitely be a name that's bandied about and talked about. But is that time, Grappler, for you to take over, buddy?
Yes, sir. Time for the FanDuel Best Bets, and today's Best Bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. As we talked about yesterday, and we'll continue to talk about all week, not a ton going on in the sports calendar tonight. It's pretty
How
much
creative can you get? It's
the one day of the year where I'm doing an all-star game bet, and it's a same game parlay. I am expecting Freddie Freeman to record a hit. I'm taking the over in runs at 7. Luis Arias of the Miami Marlins, expecting him to record 2+ total bases, and I'm expecting a tie after the first inning. Throw $10 on that, you can win $89.40. So yeah, that's today's best bets, and those were powered by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and find thousands of ways to wager. Please play responsibly. Must be 19+ and physically located in Ontario.
Yeah, limited offerings. It's like in the pandemic when the only sports to watch was the Belarusian Premier League.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Hey, I did a story about people who were gambling on like table tennis, and Russian table tennis was getting action during the pandemic.
That would be. And then Korean baseball came back fast, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
it did.
Korean baseball that came back well before Major League Baseball?
Wasn't there a whole scandal in the table tennis world? Wasn't there like rigged matches or something like that? I could swear I heard that.
Sport. Yeah, for sure. And I'll tell you what, if it's Russian table tennis and it's during the pandemic and it's suddenly getting a lot of action, I guarantee you there were some entrepreneurs who saw an opportunity.
Yeah, that's fair. That is a very fair comment.
Saw an opportunity. We in the pandemic, we had 2 Olympics that you went to just 6 months apart and that I covered as well. And now we'll have quite a break in between. But the Russian has always been the conversation.
You know what? I went to a Russian soccer game when I was over there.
National team?
No, it was my local Yekaterinburg team.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah, but it was great. It was a great atmosphere. It was kind of like being at a TFC game.
Except Russian.
Russian.
The songs were louder in Russian.
Yeah,
and
the stadium was a little bigger.
Were they drinking vodka or beer? What was it?
Yes.
Whatever.
They don't discriminate.
Is the hockey rinks in Russia? Can the fans drink in the seats?
No, they don't serve alcohol in the arena
at all.
No.
In England, they serve alcohol in soccer stadiums, but you can't take it to your seat, which means you're limited to the concourse, which means you're limited to one pregame and one at halftime.
One pregame. Oh, Brendan.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, well, that's why the pubs are so popular.
That's why everybody gets quite sauced beforehand.
Yeah. That's why there's such a thing called tailgating.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tailgate when the stadium is like in the middle of a neighborhood. Like, imagine if Scotiabank Arena was, I don't know, where Casa Loma is.
Yeah,
right in the middle of a neighborhood, and you can probably pick a more dense neighborhood. But like that
Chelsea's like that, like Fulham's like that.
Yeah, so the brand new Premier League they were just promoted. Luton Town, it's the smallest team ever promoted. There's viral videos all over TikTok and Instagram where you basically go through like neighbors' backyards to get into the away end.
Right.
You walk up the stand and you can see, oh, there's Mrs. McAllister planning things.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know why Mrs. McAllister lives in Luton Town, but that's where I was going. Peter, this was a pleasure, man. Thanks. Great to do a show with you. Thanks for getting your boy Byron Froese on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. Yeah. This was a blast.
I look forward to doing another one with you.
Absolutely.
Dave Feschuk, I'll see you tomorrow, my friend.
Looking forward to it.
We'll have ESPYs and Major League Baseball All-Star games to talk about and have some more fun. This has been OverDrive. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow.